Pop quiz time! Is your library as inclusive as it could be? Today, we're diving in with a quick self-assessment to see how culturally diverse your classroom library is. Stick around to see where your library stands and tips to help it make it even better. Hi, I'm Mariana and I'm a classroom teacher here in Alberta, Canada, and I love to make helpful YouTube videos for other educators just like you. In today's episode, we're going to see how well you scored on the Classroom Library Diversity Quiz. And spoiler alert, I did not score very well. You can actually watch one of my earliest videos on this channel where I dive into this topic, and it's called Diversity in My Classroom Library. Okay, let's take the quiz and see how you did. This episode is going to require you to be near your classroom library, and we know today is Sunday. I post videos every Sunday. So if you're not in your classroom library, then just take note mentally of this quiz and maybe rewatch this episode when you are in your classroom so that you can see what your true score is. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to share topics with you, and you are going to give yourself either a score of 0, a +1, or a +2. Then you're going to add up your score and share your results in the comment section below and see how you did. Afterwards, I'm going to share tips on how you can diversify your class library. Are you ready? Okay, everybody's going to start at 0, of course. So here we go. Do you have books that are written predominantly about white characters? Give yourself a 0 for that. Those books are easy to come by. You get no points for that. That's easy. Do you have fictional books that feature a girl protagonist? Give yourself a +1. So look through your library. Do you have any books that feature a girl protagonist, not a boy? Give yourself a +1. I brought like a handful of books down. So here is a girl protagonist in the story and it's fictional. I'm going to give myself a +1 for that. Do you have a fictional book that features a girl protagonist that's not a white character? If you do, give yourself a +2. Here I have a fictional book that features a white character, a female character that's not white. So currently my score is +3. Woo! All right, moving on. How about Black protagonists? Do you have fictional books in your classroom that have Black protagonists? So this is a character, and I have as well here this book, Many Shades of Love. I guess this is a nonfiction book. Oh, no, Auntie's Brown. Auntie's Brown is Desert Sand Moving with the Wind. So I guess that would be a fictional book. Awesome. So if you have Black protagonists, give yourself a +1 to your score. What about Indigenous books? Do you have books that highlight Indigenous people and culture? This book is called Peace Dancer. It was actually autographed. Where is the autograph? Hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. Autographed by the author and the illustrator. I found this at Value Village. Do I still have the price on here? Yeah, I found it for $6, a hardcover book. Fantastic. So here is one of my many Indigenous books. If you have Indigenous books in your classroom, give yourself a +2. Well done. All right, moving on. I'm going to list specific cultures now. If you have a book and you just need a book that highlights an aspect of this culture, you're going to give yourself a +2 to your score. So, Indian culture. Do you have a book about Indian culture? It's probably easier if I just take all those books. I have this book from Barefoot Books. It's called Elephant Dance, A Journey to India. In the social studies curriculum, in the old curriculum in Alberta, we needed to learn about India and Indian culture. And so I wanted to have a book to help me teach about the culture, but also I do have students that are from India. So if you have a book that highlights Indian culture, whether that's about food or dancing or anything like that, give yourself a +2 to your score. What about Asian culture? I don't have anything here, but I do have a book about Pansit, which is Filipino. It talks about the Filipino culture. So I know in my classroom, I do have a book, but that is definitely an area that I am lacking. So I definitely need more books about Asian culture. But if you do, give yourself a +2. All right, moving on. South American culture. I don't think this one highlights South American culture. I do have a book about Peru though, but it's not with me right now. But if you do have books that reflect South American culture, give yourself 2 points. How about Middle Eastern books? If you have a book that highlights Middle Eastern books, give yourself 2 points as well. So give yourself 2 points for all of those cultures that I listed. Indian, Asian, South American, Middle Eastern. Give yourself 2 points. How are you doing so far? Up until now, you could have scored 14 points. Wow. But we're not done yet. All right, this is a loaded question. I'm going to read it from my screen. Give yourself a +1 to your score for each book that is nonfiction and features a non-white person. Whew. Autobiographies, biographies, informational books about non-white people. And scores can vary widely here. If I'm looking through mine, informational book, nonfiction, and features non-white person. Oh, 1 second. I have a book here that talks about what is a refugee. This is a nonfiction book, so it's information. Refugees had to flee their country because they were in danger. And it features a non-white person. Well, I guess this one has lots of different skin tones. So I would give myself a +1 for having this book. If you're curious, this is What is a Refugee by Elise Gravel, and she has a lot of great books in her repertoire. So yeah, I would give myself a +1 for that book. All right, how did you do? How was your score in this pop quiz? Was it good? Let me tell you that in the video that I filmed earlier in my YouTube channel, the one about my classroom library books, I scored very low. I had no books about Indigenous culture, Asian culture, Indian culture, nothing. How unwelcoming was my classroom library to my students? Very unwelcoming. No matter what your score, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress. A low score, it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that we have some room for growth here. Small changes to your classroom library can have a big impact on your students' sense of belonging. I'm going to repeat that in case you were doing something else. Now listen carefully. Small changes to your classroom library can have tremendous impact on your students' sense of belonging in the classroom. I have 5 actionable tips that you can use to help diversify your class library because I was in those shoes. I had a very weak classroom library and I needed to do something about it. All right, tip number 1, this is where you're going to start. You're going to audit your books. You're going to pull anything off of your shelf and out of your classroom library that reinforces prejudices and stereotypes. Get rid of those books. Tip number 2 is to look for books that fill in gaps of representation. Do you have a lot of Filipino students in your class, for example? I know I do at my school. We have a lot of Filipino students. Do I have books that represent Filipino culture or that highlight Filipino culture? I didn't, not until a couple of years ago when I started to purchase books and include them in my class library. Even just one book, even just having one book about Filipino culture and displaying it would make a huge world of a difference to those Filipino students in your classroom. Tip number 3 is to rotate the books that you showcase in your classroom. If you're not showcasing books in your classroom, now is a great time to start that, by the way. So display books about Lunar New Year, or we're heading into Black History Month. You can display books about Black History Month in your classroom during the month of February. Tip number 4 is to collaborate with families in your classroom. Like I said, I have a lot of Filipino students in my school. I can collaborate with them. I can ask them, do you have any book recommendations that you know of that would really highlight the importance of Filipino culture? I would love to grab them from my classroom. Or you can even take it one step further and you can encourage families, Filipino families or whoever, to donate books to your classroom, even just one book, so that their culture can be represented. How amazing would that be? We always know that teachers, or parents, I should say, are always looking for ways to encourage teachers and to support teachers, not just with gifts at Christmas or at the end of the year, but maybe you can just put out an email at the beginning of January, beginning of the school year, and say, I'm really trying to build my classroom library to make sure that all students feel represented and welcome in my classroom. If there is a book about your culture that you would like to donate, it would be very greatly appreciated. Amazing. And my last tip on diversifying your class library is to start small. My goodness, when I did this quiz, And I noticed I had a huge lack of Indigenous resources and Asian resources. I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I had to go out right away and spend a lot of money to make sure I had lots of books. No. Start small. Even by adding one book every year will help diversify your library, and it will help students to feel more welcome. You don't need to purchase all your books either. You can always go to the library and borrow books and display them as well. That's a huge improvement as well. But just start small. Don't feel overwhelmed. So there you go. How did you do on the pop quiz? I would love to know. Leave your score in the comments below and let me know what you thought about this pop quiz in your classroom library, diversifying your classroom library. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give it a thumbs up and also share it with a teacher colleague. I would love to know what their score is as well. And we'll get a bunch of comments and see down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe as well. I like to post a new video every single Sunday morning. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.